You won't believe the scene. It was my college graduation party, the culmination of 4 years of grinding, all-nighters, and sacrificing pretty much everything. I stood there, cap and gown still on, watching my parents hand my twin sister, Clara, a big, brightly wrapped box. She tore into it, and inside was a stack of travel brochures and a personalized itinerary. Mom started crying, wrapped Clara in a huge hug, and I heard her clear as a bell. You deserve the world, sweetheart. A fully paid 2-month trip through Europe. It's everything you ever wanted. The whole room cheered. Clara was beaming, and my stomach just twisted into a knot of familiar, painful jealousy. Then it was my turn. Dad walked over to me, handed me a small, plain envelope, and said, in a tone that was completely devoid of warmth, "Here you go, Alice. It's what we could spare for you." I opened it. Inside was a crisp, $10 gift card to a discount store and a little note that read, "For a new notebook. Remember to learn gratitude." The smile I gave them was wide, bright, and utterly fake. What they didn't know was that while they were busy celebrating Clara, I was already packing my bags. I moved out of their house that night, silently, completely severing ties. A week later, my parents called me, and they weren't asking about the $110 gift card. They were crying. Was I wrong for finally walking away from them, for taking that perfect moment of their golden child's celebration and turning it into my exit? Tell me, honestly, if you would have put up with this kind of favoritism for a second longer. This story isn't about me being a bad sport about a gift. It's about a lifetime of being invisible. Clara and I are identical twins, but we may as well have been strangers raised in different families. From the moment we were born, Clara was the golden child. She was the one who was sensitive, artistic, and needed special encouragement. I was the tough one, a practical one, the one who could handle things. Translation: I was the dumping ground for all the neglect they had to justify. If Clara got a B, Mom spent hours consoling her and blaming the teacher. If I got an A, Dad asked why it wasn't an 8. Clara wanted to study art history, a degree that, while lovely, wasn't exactly a golden ticket to financial success. They paid her tuition in full, bought her a new car, and let her live at home rent-free while she found herself. I decided to pursue software engineering and data analytics. I was passionate about it, yes, but I also knew it was a practical, high-demand field. Because I was the practical one, I was told I needed to earn my way. I worked 3 jobs throughout college, waiting tables, tutoring, and freelance coding, just to cover my tuition, books, and minimal living expenses. My parents contributed about 10% of my total costs, which they reminded me about constantly, as if it were a monumental sacrifice that required my undying gratitude. While Clara was using her college fund to take summer workshops in Tuscany, I was spending my summers interning at tech startups, often working 70 hours a week. I barely saw them. They barely noticed. I remember one Christmas when I came home for 3 days, exhausted. Clara got a designer laptop for her creative projects. I got a mug with my college logo on it and a gentle reminder from Dad that hard work builds character. The subtle favoritism wasn't just about money, it was about love and validation. Every accomplishment I had, getting into my top choice university, winning a regional coding competition, securing a prestigious internship, was met with a lukewarm, "That's nice, dear," while Clara's most basic effort, like finishing a particularly abstract painting, was treated like a Nobel Prize achievement. I learned early on to stop sharing my life with them. It hurt less to achieve things in silence than to have them instantly minimized. My graduation day was a beautiful, sunny blur. I graduated summa cum laude, top of my class. My thesis was actually getting attention from major tech companies. Clara. She was in the audience, holding a sign that read, "Future European Traveler." She dropped out 2 semesters ago, but was there to celebrate my milestone, which felt like a final, ironic twist of the knife. I invited my friends and my professional mentors, all of whom knew the sacrifices I'd made. My parents hosted the party, but it was clear it was just another stage for Clara. They spent the entire evening talking about her impending trip, the charming cafes she'd visit, and how this trip was going to change her life. My actual achievement, the degree that had cost me years of blood, sweat, and tears, was completely overshadowed. And then came the gift-giving ceremony, the moment that truly crystallized everything. It wasn't just the monetary difference. It was the emotional chasm it represented. First, Clara's gift, the extravagant Europe trip. Mom's tearful, "You deserve the world," speech was the final crushing blow. It implied that I, with my 10 gift card and lecture on gratitude, deserved a cheap pen and a lesson in humility. The message was so loud it drowned out the music. Clara is worthy of love, adventure, and boundless generosity. Alice is worthy of a hand-me-down lesson. My parents saw me not as their daughter, but as a project, a self-sustaining unit that required no emotional input, only correction. I looked at the 10 gift card and the note. The irony was suffocating. Learn gratitude. I was grateful, all right. Grateful I had learned to rely on myself. Grateful I had a talent they couldn't diminish. And grateful I had saved enough money to never need anything from them again. That quiet, internal resolve was the moment I stopped being their daughter and started being an adult who merely shared a genetic connection with them. I smiled, thanked them both politely, and then went upstairs to change out of my gown. While the party raged downstairs, celebrating the imaginary future of their favorite child, I systematically dismantled my life in their house. I had been planning this for months. I didn't own much, just the essentials. And I had already stored my big items at a friend's place. I tossed the 10 gift card into the trash, a symbolic rejection of their meager offering, and packed the last box. My new apartment was already leased and furnished, paid for with the signing bonus from the top-tier tech company that had hired me 2 months earlier. The offer was for well into the 6 figures, a salary that would put me light years ahead of my parents' combined income. They had no idea. They hadn't asked about my job search, hadn't asked about my salary. They just assumed I'd be struggling like the practical daughter they expected me to be. My friend Mark, who had been my rock and knew the full extent of the favoritism, pulled up to exactly 11:30 p.m., as planned. I quietly wheeled my last suitcase out, slid into his car, and we drove away from that brightly lit house filled with people who had no idea I was gone forever. There was no confrontation, no dramatic goodbye, just a clean break. That night, I slept in my own apartment, in my own bed, purchased with my own money. And it was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in 22 years. I woke up the next day, went to work, my high-paying grown-up job, and started my new, truly independent life. So that's the situation I was in. I had the means to leave, I had the reason to leave, and I had executed the perfect, silent escape. My parents were oblivious, still basking in the glow of their generosity to Clara, and their righteousness about teaching me a lesson in gratitude. I had every right to simply vanish. But the thought kept nagging at me, should I have sent them a note? Should I have given them one last chance to understand the depth of their unfairness? Or was the silent, complete absence the only message they would ever truly feel? Before I tell you what happened next, what made them call me in tears, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Or would you have gone silent? Or would you have laid everything out for them? Did I owe them a final explanation? I spent the next week living in blissful silence. My phone stayed quiet, mostly. No calls from Mom asking me to run an errand. No texts from Dad reminding me about the virtues of saving money. They probably assumed I was busy unpacking my meager belongings and learning gratitude with my new notebook. I didn't contact them. I didn't feel the need. The void they left in my life was immediately and easily filled with actual, caring friends and colleagues. The call came precisely 1 week later. On a Saturday afternoon, it wasn't a text, it was a phone call from my mother, and her voice was a wreck. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity, that last little hook of our shared history, made me swipe the screen. "Hello?" I said, my voice calm and professional.
Alice! Oh, Alice, thank God. Where are you?
"Why aren't you answering? Why is your room empty? I went up there to give you the rest of your laundry, and everything is gone." She was hysterical. I could hear Dad in the background, his voice a low, frantic rumble. "I moved out, Mom," I said simply. "Last Saturday, after the party, moved out." "Where?" "You can't just move out. You don't have a job yet. You can't afford a place in this city." Her voice shifted immediately from panic to parental condescension, assuming my helplessness. That was the last straw for me. "Actually, Mom," I said, pausing just long enough to let the weight of the moment settle, "I can. I started my job on Monday. I'm a lead data analyst at Citadel Tech, making 180,000 a year. I bought my own apartment, and it's completely furnished. I moved out because I am an adult who doesn't need to live in a house where I am not valued." The silence on the other end was immediate and total. I heard Dad snatch the phone.
Alice?
"What is this nonsense? The 180,000.
Citadel Tech. Why didn't you tell us? We need to talk about this?
You can't just make life decisions like this. We need to meet your superiors."
You need financial advice!
His concern wasn't for me. It was for the sudden, massive social and financial opportunity they had missed. It was for their image. I cut him off, finally letting out years of pent-up resentment. "You didn't ask, Dad. You never asked. You were too busy focusing on Clara. You were so busy congratulating her on the Europe trip. The trip that I could have easily paid for myself a few times over with my signing bonus. That you didn't even notice I was graduating top of my class. Or that I had one of the most lucrative starting positions in the entire department. You gave me a 10 gift card and a lecture on gratitude. You taught me gratitude, Dad. I am incredibly grateful that I have enough resources and resilience now that I never have to accept your crumbs of affection or your financial judgment ever again." The tears came then, but not from me. Mom snatched the phone back and she was full on sobbing.
"But, Alice, what about Clara's trip? She's leaving next week. We need you."
"Your father's credit cards are all maxed out from the down payment for the trip. And we just got hit with a huge unexpected property tax bill. We thought you would stay home for a few months and give us a little help, just until we sorted out the cash flow. We were relying on your room being empty for 2 months so we could rent it to a student." The unbelievable selfishness was staggering. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because their golden child's travel fund was in jeopardy, and their backup plan, renting my room, had been ruined by my independence. I laughed, a genuine, short, sharp laugh. "You were relying on me to be a safety net," you openly mocked. "You thought I would wait around and subsidize Clara's trip, the trip that she deserved the world for. No, Mom, I won't. You wanted me to learn gratitude. I'm grateful I'm not you. I'm grateful I'm not Clara. And I'm grateful I'm not stuck in your house anymore." I could hear Dad shouting in the background about how ungrateful I was, how I was ruining the family. I didn't argue. I didn't yell back. I just delivered the final, most devastating blow with a calm, even voice. "I wish you both luck with the tax bill and with Clara's trip. She can enjoy Europe, and I'll enjoy my life. Don't call me again unless it's to apologize for 20 years of neglect, and not a moment before, and tell Clara that my 10 gift card bought me a life she can only dream of." And I hung up the phone. I blocked their numbers and all their emails. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was my silence. They tried to contact me through Clara, who texted me 2 days later, not to apologize, but to ask if I could spot them some cash. so she could buy better luggage for Europe. I blocked her too. It was over. The consequence of their blatant favoritism wasn't a dramatic shouting match, it was the quiet, absolute disappearance of the tough daughter they assumed would always be there. They lost more than just a daughter. They lost their emotional and financial safety net, and they lost their ability to control my narrative. My revenge wasn't loud. It was the soft but undeniable reality of my success, built in secret, that exposed the cruelty of their neglect. I have reconnected with my aunt and uncle, who are genuinely proud of me, and that's the family I choose now. My graduation wasn't just a degree, it was an emancipation. Sometimes, the loudest message is silence, and the most powerful form of revenge is simply building a life so wonderful they can't reach it. I am not the ungrateful, struggling daughter they envisioned. I am a successful, happy woman who learned, not just gratitude, but self-worth. Like this video if you think my parents finally got what they deserved, and if my decision to walk away was absolutely the right one. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming toxic family dynamics and finding true independence. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did my parents deserve a second chance, or did I handle their call in the perfect way? Let me know your opinions. I'll see you all in the next story.